Hello everybody, my name is the Zero Man, and I would like to do a little shout out here to Metroid Zero Mission. Yes, another very old game that I just want to take a very quick look at. And if you don't know anything about Metroid Zero Mission, it is essentially Nintendo's reimagining of the very first Metroid game. It's polished, slicked up, it adds in a actual kind of backstory, so you at least know somewhat of what's going on instead of just having to infer all of it. And it actually adds on extra content that happens after the game, which I find to be some of the most intriguing and yet exceedingly difficult part of the game. But why am I going to do a little quick look at this? Well, it's because of the fact that Zero Mission is one of my favorite Game Boy Advance games of all time. Now, it's not one of my favorite games of all time just because I've played way too many good games, but it's probably in the top 10 of Game Boy Advance games I've played of all time. And I've honestly only played two Metroid games. There's Zero Mission, and then there's Fusion. I've played a little bit of, I think it's Bounty Hunters was the one that came right after DS launched. I played a little bit of that, but I don't like first-person Metroid. I just don't. There's just something about it that bothers me, and I'm not quite sure what it is. But anyway, Zero Mission. Zero Mission is, like I said, a retelling of the story of the original Metroid with added content after. Now, the entire point of the game is that you come to this planet that Samus has apparently lived on sometime in the past, as you could see in some of the inner dialogues at the beginning of the game. But she has to come down, she's tasked with eliminating all of the Metroids and then promptly killing Mother Brain. So, seems simple enough, right? Well, she comes in, she can't jump worth crap, and her shots are really small, but she gets her ability of the Morph Ball, rockets, super rockets, power bombs, scanners, multiple suits, multiple upgrades to her blaster, and an actual different switch up in this game. There are some kind of lithographic tomes that you get, that they add things to your suit, but you don't get to see what they are until way later down the game. Now, the entire game goes through, you have to go around searching, collecting objects. Some areas you just can't get through, and some areas you can. Well, you have to go find certain items, you have to be able to do certain things, you have to have some kind of, well, skill. Which, I don't know if you could see, but, oh, I'm playing with keyboard because my controllers won't register with the emulator for some reason, and oh, it was a bit of a rough time there for a while. I had trouble. It was very interesting getting used to keyboard controls over GBA controls. So yeah, it was kind of awful that way, but that's my fault, not the game's. Anyway, you go around exploring, gathering items, gathering equipment. Now, not all of this equipment and items you actually have to get. If you know Metroid, there's a lot of things that are hidden. Now, of course, you have to get the main items, you have to get Freeze Ray, and different suits, and different upgrades, but you don't have to actually get all of the missiles, all of the tanks, all of the just stuff that upgrades the numbers, the amount of stuff you have. You can actually complete the game with avoiding all of it, even though it's a bit more of a hardcore mode. But the game is really known for not just its exploring, but these giant epic boss fights. Each area has its own boss, and now this boss has a special way to beat it. Usually it's spam rockets that works with most of them. But Each boss is gigantic, just towers over Samus, comes down, can stomp on her in an instant. The only one that this is actually an exception to is the Mother Brain at the end, which is actually not that much larger than Samus is, surprisingly. But that's actually one of the best part of the game where Zero Mission actually shines, because whereas it could have just been, you know, a repolishing and a redoing of the original Metroid, it actually goes on to expand the story further. Whereas after she goes through, completes her mission, destroys all the Metroids, supposedly, and then kills Mother Brain, she has to get off the planet, well, just out of the base, really, and then fly off. Well, her ship gets shot down, and she ends up losing her power suit, and she ends up having to run through this entire separate base that was made specifically for Zero Mission to get her suit back, and once she gets her suit back, the game kind of deciphers all the tablets you got, which adds extra functionality to the suit, making the suit even better than it was before. So you actually get to play the original game, then you get to play as a continuation of the original game as Zero Suit Samus, and then you get to play as a continuation of Zero Suit Samus as an even more powerful and just straight up overpowered version of Armored Samus. Now, whereas the game, I could say, oh, it's so good at the original part. Well, the original game was good to begin with, so them building off and redoing the original Metroid, it's not anything to call home about, other than the fact they've polished up graphics and they've made everything work for the Game Boy Advance. No, what I think is possibly the worst section of the game is Zero Suit Samus, and you will be Zero Suit Samus for far too long. And the reason I hate Zero Suit Samus with a passion, I don't hate Zero Suit Samus, I hate Zero Suit Samus in this game. Now, the reason I hate her is because she can't kill enemies, she's pretty much worthless, and she has none of the abilities that the suit gives her. So, you don't kill enemies, you stun them, and you hope and pray that they don't send an army after you, because the moment they send an army after you, you're dead. So the entire game goes completely Metal Gear Solid for the entire Zero Suit part of the game, which is annoying since there are enemies everywhere, and your suit's on the very far side of the base, and you have to cross through so many different areas and do so many different things, and I hate it. It's the one part of this game I don't like. And yeah, if you haven't been able to tell, I actually have played and beaten this game a very, very long time ago. It's the only Metroid game I've ever beaten. I've still yet to beat Fusion, just because I find Fusion to be mind-numbingly difficult, but I probably just suck. Anyway... anyway, after you get the super powered up, awesome suit of awesome, and decode all the lithographic text you've picked up the game, you can actually go and just stomp all the enemies throughout the rest of the game, and you won't be able to play as super powerful, extra super special Samus for very long, because you pretty much just completely wipe the game at that point. You'll spend so much more time as Zero Suit, which is very disappointing given the kind of cool abilities you get from the lithography. And the sad part is that I know the base is supposed to blow up, so technically you can't go back, but on your map, it looks like you should be able to reconnect back into the original areas. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think you can. I think once you moved on, you're separated from it. You can't go back to the original areas, which would make sense because of the bomb, but for a completionist side of things and wanting to go back and get objects side of things, it's really frustrating because you get stuck in this new area and you don't have access to all of those items you missed if you didn't get them the first time. So it kind of sucks in that regard, but I can understand because of the bomb, so I'm willing to forgive it for the story aspect of things. So, this game could have just been like an HD remake of the original, not an HD, but just a improved remake of the original game, of just Metroid itself. And that would have been great. Just to see Metroid bumped up in quality, actually have cinematics, have a story that Samus is expressing throughout the entire thing, seeing Samus struggle, just with the Metroids and the bosses, and Ridley. Oh, Ridley. And then even coming down to Mother Brain, and just seeing Samus kind of fly off into the sunset and giving her monologue about the entire thing and setting up the Metroid universe for the second game. They could have just done that, and it would have been perfect. Because this is a solid game. Just with that part alone, it's a solid game. But they decided to go further, and they just added on all kinds of stuff. They added on the lithography into the main game world itself, which you can collect, and then go on to add an entirely separate area where you could play as Zero Suit Samus, which has entirely new enemies in the area, entirely new goals, entirely new locations, which you can get an upgraded suit, which has different abilities, different skills, different overall things, and it actually gives you a more resolute ending than Metroid did, which was just like Samus waving at the screen and just being like, hey, you won. No, you actually get more of a resolution this time and more of a setup into the following games. So, if you honestly want to play this game, it's all over eBay, just kind of like any older game is, or you could go to the website I go to, isozone.com, and download it as a ROM. It's fairly small size because, you know, it's a tiny little flash cartridge, so you could pick it up for GameCube, you could run it on a Visual Boy emulator instead of a Virtual Boy. Virtual Boy. Don't remind me of that. I don't want to be reminded of that. Virtual Boys were terrible. But besides the point, I do recommend if you play any game in the series, this probably is the game to play. Now, I would honestly recommend if you're going to play one of the Metroid games, play the original Metroid first and then play Zero Mission, because Zero Mission is not only more polished, but it improves upon the story, it gives story and meaning to what was just kind of roaming around and killing bosses in the original game, and then goes on to add more story on top of that, which leads into the next series of games. So, if you're going to play them in that order, the original one and then Zero Mission, just so you can kind of get a sense of it. And if you really wanted to, before Zero Mission and before Metroid, you could play Other M. I wouldn't suggest it. It's not that good of a game. But as far as story goes, you can. As far as just the game itself, it's not that good. But anyway, that's my personal opinion. I've seen some things about it. I haven't played it myself, so I can't really personally say, so I really shouldn't have an opinion, but, you know, internet, everyone has an opinion whether they know about it or not. So, that's just my 2 cents about Zero Mission. If you would like to play it, go find it somewhere, play it. You would have a heck of a good time if you do like Metroid, or if you like Castlevania-style games, so go find it, go play it. And until next time, everybody, my name's been the Zero Man, and you have all been fantastic.